Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 3 Tips to Move from Performance Testing to Performance Engineering. This webinar is brought to you by HP Software and the Vivit User Group. I'm your moderator and host today, Chris Trimper. I am from the Western New York Vivit chapter. I am a senior test automation analyst, and I've been using HP software for a little over 4 years and in the automation field for about 8 or 9 years. Our first speaker today is Sylvia. She's a senior product marketing manager with over 20 years experience in the IT organization and currently specializing in HP performance with solutions such as Performance Center and Load Runner. Our next speaker is Mukalika. She is a senior product manager at HP Software with 14 years of experience in IT, managing Performance Center. It's a core part of HP software performance validation space, looking at needs for enterprise performance testing in the Center of Excellence market. Our third speaker today is Vicki, also from HP. She's a product manager for Performance Center and Load Runner products, working in the performance and lifecycle team. Just a reminder that today's session is being recorded live. This means that all Vivit members can go back to the Vivit website at any time and rewatch this session. Additionally, the slide deck will be made available to you, and after those are prepared, an email link will be sent and posted on the website. As the session proceeds, please send any questions through the question pane in the webinar control panel, and we will attend to those at the end in a Q&A session. This screen here shows a picture of the webinar control panel if you haven't had a chance to use GoToWebinar before. There's a little reddish arrow that will allow you to expand and close the panel. And the section that's of most interest is this question section. You'll see a pane there where you can ask questions, and we will address those at the end. I'd like to hand the webinar over to Sylvia to begin the session today. Thank you.
Chris, why don't you take it through, start the polling questions, and Sylvia will chime in when she can.
All right, we have a polling question to begin the session with to be able to drive the discussion. So the first question we're going to ask is, what is your release cycle? Do we release quarterly, monthly, weekly, or less than a week? I'd like to give everyone a moment to be able to answer the questions so we can look at the results.
Yes, and thanks everyone for giving your input. This will give us a great opportunity to really zone in on your areas of concern as we talk more in the webinar. So we've got over 68% of the people have voted. We'll give it just another second here. Looks like it's good, Chris, so let me close that out and give you your results. Here you go.
All right, it looks like got a decent spread between quarterly and monthly, but it looks like the majority of us are doing more of a big bang release as opposed to smaller, more agile releases in the weekly or bi-weekly approach. So I think that'll help us drive a really good discussion coming forward.
Okay, and let's do another one here, and I will launch that for you.
All right, our next question is, how often do you run performance? Do we run it once per release, more than once across multiple releases, or in every sprint? And if multiple of these apply to you, please select what's appropriate.
Okay, and even more have voted this time around. So let me go ahead and we'll, any last minute, go ahead. We'll give it a second. Okay, all right, let me give you those results.
Great, it looks like most of you are, or a good portion of you are doing more than once per release. So you have a chance to get multiple performance cycles in here. So we'll really get a chance of hearing about how to harness what you're doing. And those that aren't able to performance test as much, maybe we can learn a little bit about why we need to performance test more often. Great, let's get to our last polling question. All right, last question we have for you is, what is the average time that you have for performance testing? So how long do we have to do this testing? Is it less than a week, 2 weeks, a month, or more than a month? So let's hear what everybody has to say.
Okay, just another second. We have over 3/4 of you have voted, so here we go. Let me close this out so you can get the results, Chris.
Great, it looks like the majority of us have at least 2 weeks or more to do our testing. So that's fantastic, and we can really hear what our presenters have to say about, recommended performance testing times and what you're going to be able to get out of a week or a month's worth of testing. Thanks everyone for contributing to this discussion.
Yeah, this is Sylvia. I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we sure can. Thanks, Sylvia.
Yeah, I apologize. I have some issues, of course. You see, performance is key for everything, even for webinars, guys. And it's interesting to say that, I have been having some computer performance issues, and I have to take to the technicians, and that means like money that you lose, because when you're not productive, the company and the business is losing money. So it's important, you guys, to definitely manage performance. And as I was mentioning here, performance engineer is key to meeting the business demands. It's not just for individuals like me, but also for the whole organization, especially like now we are having this on the holiday seasons, and there is so many items and applications that performance relate to. And something that I want to mention to you guys, right? Performance, actually applications, they are getting a lot more simple because of the devices. And I mean, sometimes the front end is very simple, it's simplified, but what happens is the complexity that is behind of the applications, it's massive. And the interesting piece when you have this complexity is that you don't see that. Even when you're in your mobile phone and you're consulting, doing some, for example, analysis on or even checking some flight, if you think about all the information that goes behind, like you have the device performance, you have the network that goes behind of the application. If you are in a specifically airport or terminal, right, you might have different types of network. If you are here in Dallas or maybe there in California or even like in other countries, how is the network, right? And then also when you add security on top of the application, that also eats bandwidth in your performance. So it becomes even more complex. And then again, talking about an airline application, when you think about the integration that the application has with legacy systems, with all the other companies, and also with credit card or financial, right? There's tons of integrations. And then on top of that, you have also the data that you need to use for testing. So the complexity that you have behind simple mobile apps, for example, it's very, very big. And then you, performance engineers, need to take care of that. On top of that is the user experience. And when you talk about user experience, because the user expects to have 2 milliseconds of, less than 2 milliseconds of response. So how to keep the performance going of these applications with all this complexity, the user experience, and now also with the time to execute your test. So I feel your pain because I know that your time is very short to make sure that user has a best experience with all this complexity. So in this webinar, we want basically to talk about the journey, how you move. So when you talk about performance testing, right? Performance testing, you can move along to the next slide, is basically something that we can say that is done on the late stages of the development. So the developers have the application ready, that you have the functional test going through, and then sometimes you don't have too much time to do the performance testing. It's more like just a risk assessment. It's not a truly performance test many of the times. And then is part of the quality assurance, right? It's just focus on the test. And then also is basically focus more, I would say, in low testing project pace. Sometimes companies doesn't have a COE center of excellence, etc. And with all these changes that we have now in the market, like for example, with the mobile apps, with Agile, with DevOps, with big data, cloud, user experience, all these IT and business initiatives, especially with marketing now, and line of business have so much money, it's hard to still keep delivering with just performance testing. That's what we want to talk here. We want to help you guys to move from performance testing to performance engineering that takes care of performance across the life cycle. It's not just about testing, but it's about like maintaining the performance across the application life cycle. It's about focusing the business, it's about doing dev test, DevOps, it's about application optimization. And how will you do that? So basically, let's talk about the evolution to performance engineer, and also even before going to the 3 steps, the three key and 3 hot steps to move there. I just want to give a quick overview here, talking about like the maturity level, and then it's something that's a journey, okay? It's not something that you're gonna move one time for everything for performance engineer. You can grow that slow and then with the pace that you want to. So let's say that if you're doing just a SLA-based test with some technologies, right, and maybe sometimes you have issues with your servers that you start doing some load testing, that's the first stage, is maybe doing some project-based testing with low runner. So that's what you consider the initial steps for load testing. Then you can move to performance testing that's focused more in the user experience. So we do like some additional client-side performance. So we do some correlations. Maybe we even include some network conditions that you haven't thought about. So that's, I would say, is the second step to go to the maturity level. And then is where you start to analyze availability and capacity, right, with the continuous tests and integrate with development tools. So you analyze the operations data, and you can also add that information on top of your tests as a baseline. And then if you want to move to the next level, is virtualizing the dependencies that you might have with your test, adding service virtualization, and eliminate the third-party dependencies on your test. And then moving to a complete performance engineering means that really continuous feedback, continuous delivery, continuous test. And we're going to tell you how to move to this maturity level in 3 very simple steps in here. And then moving to the next one, I want to introduce Mokolika Kapas, that is our product manager, and Vicky Villalobos, our product manager as well for performance testing solutions, and they are going to go through the technicality in how you guys can achieve that. Okay, Mokolika, with you now.
Hi everyone, this is Mokolika. I'm the product manager for HP Performance Center and Storm Runner, which is a part of the HP Performance Testing Suite of products. So as Sylvia said, we'll go through 3 simple tips on how to move from performance or load testing to performance engineering. Firstly, you have to, in today's world of Agile, you have to accelerate your dev test process by continuous testing. So when we hear a lot about shift left, we hear a lot about test automation, do all kinds of testing in earlier sprints, you have to keep in mind that when you're doing agile delivery and when you're doing test automation in every sprint, in your regression test suite, along with functional tests, you need to have some level of performance tests also. And I'll walk you through like what kind of performance tests you should have earlier in the sprint versus what kind of performance tests you should have later in the sprint. So tip number 1 is accelerate your test process by continuous testing. That is, make sure you can reuse your scripts which you created, say, for example, for unit testing. You can reuse your unit test scripts in functional testing as well as performance testing. That's why if you look at HP LoadRunner and Performance Center, starting version 12, we have built a lot of integration with dev tools. What we have built is you can actually build your load test scripts during your development cycle integrated with Visual Studio or Eclipse. So in developers, when they are running unit tests within their IDE, they can actually take the same unit test, wrap it with LoadRunner APIs, and run it as actually multiple virtual user performance tests. And then in Performance Center and LoadRunner both, you actually have Jenkins plugin to call LoadRunner or Performance Center tests directly from Jenkins, the continuous integration server, as a part of your CI process. On top of that, Performance Center has REST API, so that if you're not using Jenkins, but if you're using some other build tools like Ant, Maven, whatever, you can directly call PC APIs to call your performance test directly from your build chain. So as you see, from your IDE, whether it's Eclipse or Visual Studio, you can add LoadRunner APIs to unit tests. You can execute those unit tests directly from the IDE. You can even verify the output within the IDE. And then you can actually launch LoadRunner controller with multiple virtual users and run the same unit test. And as I said, when you integrate with Jenkins, whether you're running LoadRunner or Performance Center, you can run the test, you can see all the results, you can see even the HTML analysis report. And using PC REST API, you can basically schedule, run, create everything. Everything that you can directly do within Performance Center when you're doing your agile continuous testing process, you can directly call it from your build system. On top of that, in our next release of LoadRunner 12.5, we are coming up with a single true client protocol to make scripting even more simple. So you create your script once, and you can test it across multiple browsers. In Performance Center also, to simplify the whole testing process, because when you're doing Agile, you basically have no time. So we are trying to apply simplicity in all our tools, and we are trying to make it much more usable, very easy to use. So in Performance Center 12.2, which is the latest version of Performance Center, we have updated the complete look and feel. It uses the latest technologies like JavaScript and AngularJS, and you can use Performance Center now from Chrome and Safari, and the look and feel is completely simplified so that you can easily see all your tests, runs, everything. What is tip number 2? So first tip was add your performance tests to your continuous testing pipeline. What is tip number 2? Tip number 2 is make your tests more realistic using production feedback. When you're continuously pushing code into production, you need to also try to understand how is your application being used in production, because you really don't have the luxury or the time to test everything. So you need to test what is most critical. If you look at the statistics of different applications, 80% of people use only 20% of the application. So in your regression pipeline, you really don't need to have all transactions. You need to have that 20% of the transactions which 80% people use. So how do you do that? Starting Performance Center version 11.5, we have added a new feature called Performance Application Lifecycle, or PAL. And we have enhanced this in every release. So if you look at Performance Application Lifecycle in version 12 or 12.2, you will see that you can actually collect logs, a snapshot of your logs in production. We support capturing IIS logs, Apache logs, Google Analytics, and Web Trends, and also, of course, HP monitoring tool logs like HP BSM logs. You can capture a snapshot of your production log, and you can actually load it in Performance Center. So you will see what was the workload in production, what were the top transactions, what was the peak number of users in production, what was the response time in production. So you can actually compare that with your testing. You can see, okay, in test I tested transaction ABC, whereas in production 80% users use transaction CDE. And also you can see that, okay, you assume that your production concurrent users will be Y, whereas in test you tested with completely different assumptions. So you can actually compare your production data with your test, and you can fine-tune your test. In the next release of Performance Center, we will take it to a level further. What we will do is, so far you could compare your production data with test and fine-tune your test manually, but in the next release of Performance Center, you can load your production data and automatically create your scenarios, create your scripts, and also create your network virtualization profiles based on your production network conditions. You will be able to do this by loading your IIS access logs or HP real user monitor logs. And Vicky will talk more about this when she is doing the demo. And because this is coming out in our next release of Performance Center, if you want to get a sneak peek, you can send us the request to the email address we show to the end, and you can get a sneak peek of that even before it is released. This is a very cool feature, and we are really happy to bring it to you very soon. What is tip number 3? So before I go to tip number 3, let's reiterate tip number 1 and 2. Tip number 1 is continuous testing. Add your key performance tests to the continuous testing chain. Number 2 is make your performance test as realistic as possible by taking production feedback. And then tip number 3 is root cause analysis. So this may not be completely new to you. You must have been doing some level of root cause analysis when you were running performance tests, but we wanted to make it much more formalized. So when you're doing performance tests earlier in the sprints, in your continuous testing life cycle, you will initially be testing at component level because you're not even ready end-to-end. You will be initially testing at component level, then you will be testing at business process level. You will be testing the single user performance towards the beginning. So first, you need to make sure your single user performance end-to-end is performing before you go into multiple users. And even when you're doing multiple user load testing, you need to test from a real device that actual end-to-end single user response time is fine. And when you're doing your single user testing, you want to integrate with some kind of diagnostics tool like HP Diagnostics to actually drill down into method level, class level, object level. When you're doing large-scale load testing, you should integrate with your application monitoring APM tools to not only see what is your response time, but also like what was your CPU usage, your memory usage, what was the response at every layer of your application. On top of that, especially when you're doing, say, mobile testing, or when you're doing a data center migration kind of project, or when you're doing a cloud migration project, you need to check what is your application performance under different network conditions. If you're doing a performance testing of your application and you see response times like 1 second, 4 seconds under regular LAN, when you apply different network characteristics by virtualizing your network using products like HP Network Virtualization, you will be amazed to see that your response time completely change under different network conditions. And a 3G user, a real 3G user in production not only impacts the response time of his own usage, it impacts actually the response time of all other users using web application, because every request and response is queued up, and eventually it impacts the whole application. So it's very important in today's world to apply network characteristics and do a realistic scenario like, okay, say 20% of my users will use 3G network versus 20% 4G, the rest is Wi-Fi or LAN. So it's very important to do a real mix of your user base. And lastly, as I said, when you're doing your end-to-end load testing of your web application, at the same time, you need to check what is your end-to-end response time for a single user from a real device. And that's why HP has built integrations between HP's performance testing products and HP's new product called HP Mobile Center, so that when you're running large-scale load tests using Load Runner or Performance Center or Storm Runner, you can also see what is the actual response time, what are the device characteristics, what is the battery usage, the memory, the CPU on your real device for a single user. So with that, I'll reiterate what were the 3 tips. Add performance to your continuous testing. Second is create realistic scenarios, taking your production feedback. And third one is optimize your application. Do a root cause analysis first at single user level, then at multiple user level throughout the chain. Don't leave it to the end when you're ready to push your code to production. With that, I'll hand over to Vicky, who is now going to do a demo of some of these tips.
Thank you, Mukulika. Good morning, everyone. I will go ahead and share a short demo on how to automate Jenkins as well Hudson and Maven and other continuous integration and regression tools with early detection of performance and capacity issues. Let me just go ahead and start here. Sorry about that. So this will be related to the first tip. So here I am at the Jenkins website, plugins such as the HP application automation tools and Jenkins called the Web Services REST interface in HP Performance Center. This IPI is available to all other tools interested in earlier and quicker removal of performance defects. To make use of the Jenkins plugin for performance testing, we first set up a Jenkins job and the actions we wanted to take. After the job is run, results are reviewed. Creating and executing jobs that emulate virtual users, imposing reload on applications and services, enable you to ensure adequate performance after every build. When you choose to execute a test from Performance Center, the Jenkins plugin invokes a test instance defined in the Performance Center Test Lab repository. While setting up runs of HP tests, you can save time by choosing whether to collate and analyze result data. Selecting Collate and Analyze will cause the Jenkins console output to have a clickable link to the HTML report automatically generated. These report files are available for view and download directly from the Jenkins server. These reports provide a full set of statistics for each transaction defined in the script. These test results can remain readily available later for comparison over time. Also, Performance Center consolidates Jenkins run history into a graphic that looks just like how JUnit results appear. In this example, vertically, the number of tests increased over time. In red color, the count of tests which failed. Whether each step is deemed as passed or failed is based on results compared against what we call service level agreements or SLAs. The SLAs are defined in Performance Center. SLA conditions can be set for a whole test or for a specific time interval based on measurements such as response time, number of errors, or rate of hits, or the amount of data reaching custom-specified thresholds by the specific transaction. These and other features are why HP Performance Center is the preferred choice of enterprise. Join us by clicking those links for product downloads and visit our communities who want to help you to succeed. Now we will move to the second tip, which will be the integration or the usage of performance application lifecycle, or PAL for short.
Actually, let me see. Some people are having some issues. Vicky, to see your screen. Can you, yeah, get moving? Let's see. I will let you know again, because since that was freezing the screen. Oh yeah, now I can see it. And if you are having some issues to see the screen, please let us know. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready now?
Yes.
All right. So let's start. PAL enables development and operation collaboration around performance engineering, production system data, and can be used to create load tests that resembles production behavior, and testing assets such as a script can be leveraged for production monitoring. The PAL wizard guides you through the various steps that make up the flow of the PAL feature. To start planning our load tests based on production data, we simply import the data stage files. This data can be gathered from web trends, BSM, IIS logs, or Google Analytics. For this demo, we will select the ROM dataset. Once we have the production data, the next step is creating a report that shows what actually happened in the production system. We select the Create Report step. We will add a name and a description, and select an application name. And we are going to select the BSM template because the production data was exported from a BSM system. So basically on this dialog box, we are just copying the information from the wizard. In the next step, we are prompted to select the data sources for the report, and we select the production data we just uploaded. The resulting report contains several tabs. The configuration tab details the production monitoring configuration. We can see the transactions and actions that are being monitored in BSM. The workload tab provides information important regarding the load generated in production, the number of users, hits per second, together with the transaction per second information, can assist in planning the number of virtual users and the script pacing. The Performance Center tabs provide additional data about the response time for different transactions. Additional tabs include monitoring data and other information. We'll start by hitting the new button. We just give it a name. We have a button called Open File Reports. We are going to use it to see the production data as we design our load test. Now we can design our load test based on this report. Once the load test is ready, we can run it. For the sake of this demonstration, we will use a previously created load test and test run we executed in advance. In order to tune the test, we need to compare the data we collected from the run to the data we got from production. And now we will go back to our report and add the executed run to the report. Now let's take a look at the report. In the workload tab, we can see there are other tests. Our test has much less hits and users in comparison to the production for most of the transactions. We can also see in which scripts these transactions appear, and based on that, we can tweak the load test by updating the number of users for the relevant group. Now let's take a look at one of the important configurations available for file reports. One of the challenges we are faced with while comparing production and testing data is that different names might be used for the same activity. We can see that the same transaction appears with just a different suffix. We can assume this is the same transaction and the different suffix was just used to mark the different actions or script this transaction appearing. We can also see that for many of the transactions, there is a value for one dataset and NA for the other. This stems from the fact that this transaction name appears in only one of the datasets, and therefore they cannot be compared across the datasets. The mapping feature solves this issue by creating a common name across different datasets. Now let's open this transaction mapping and grouping dialog and select the option for mapping production to testing. We select the row for production transaction called buy and map to buy food, pets, and toys transaction in testing, and we call this map transaction buy map. Now, if we go back to the report, we can see the change. The buy pets, toys, and food transactions no longer appear, and neither does buy. Instead, we have a transaction all buy map, which is the one we created earlier, and also contains data from both production and testing. So this basically concludes the performance application lifecycle feature. For more information, of course, we have the guide available for reference. We have also videos. And as Mukulika mentioned earlier, is at the end of the session, if you would like to know more about the new feature or the enhancement we have for PAL, which is capable of generating a script that integrates automatically with network virtualization, please let us know and we can give you a sneak peek. And it's a very cool feature. We have received excellent feedback from customers that executed during the beta, so we're very excited to present this feature to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's very good presentation, Mukulika and Vic. And here's Sylvia again, guys. And again, very exciting. I know that everyone has a very, very short time sometimes to see demos and long demos, etc. But that's why we are offering you guys a possibility to even deliver a private demo. I answer some questions here already, and we're going to answer additional questions in a few minutes. So just to recap here, we have the three major tips. One is basically implement a continuous test. And then whenever your developer is developing, they already can do some unit tests. We do have all those integrations allowed to have the shift left shift left in your performance testings. The tip number 2 is basically getting the information from production, as Mokulika and Vic show the great opportunity to bring the data from production, from Google Analytics, and also even from app host mobile and app host solutions. You can now see the user experience and implement that in your performance development and as well development test. Very powerful information to focus in what the user experience is, and that provides the best results. And the root number 3, basically look at the root cause analysis and remove also your roadblocks with the virtualization. Understand the feedback loop as well, and we have solutions for that. I mean, it's a journey, and there is many more that we're going to be present about performance engineer. I got a very good feedback also to present some additional information regarding how to develop performance. We're going to definitely have a webinar on that. Thanks, Dave, for your suggestion. And then moving along, I just want to recap with you guys, going to the next slide. The evolution to performance engineer. Vicky, could you move to the next, please? I'm having some issues moving to the next slide. Yep, thank you. So evolution to performance engineer. Remember that I mentioned moving from load testing to the performance engineering. So something that you can do is, if you're running an old version of Performance Center or Load Runner, you can update to your versions that support performance engineering. We are developing our applications to help you to focus more on the performance engineering. And again, also even when you talk about root cause in the development applications, right, like leveraging tools like diagnostics as well. Then I would suggest, if you're using Load Runner, maybe move it to Performance Center in the future. Performance Center on SaaS, if you also like they have difficulties to move it to a newer version, you can do a POC on Performance Center on SaaS for free, and even see these capabilities and see how that can bring more reduction of the time when you do your tests. And even like you understand the baseline, comparing the baseline, it's a save time for you when you're delivering our results. Also bring network virtualization to understand network and service virtualization to remove the roadblocks. And network to nowadays, especially for mobile, it's a great solution. But I mean, there is various paths to go on top of the process regarding the solutions that you're already using. And the good thing about also this is like whenever you are just moving to newer versions, if you're in maintenance, you don't need to pay for that, right? And if you want to do a performance center on SaaS, very, very good. We don't have, I mean, you can do a trial, and there is no charge for that for you to know and see this. I would say a POC. So next slide, please, and just a recap of our solutions. We have our launch or store runner load. That is the agile cloud testing. Very simple, very easy, smart, for free for 30 days. Load Runner, it's unlimited time now with 50 virtual users. You can even give it to your developers to use Load Runner for unit tests. Also Performance Center on premises and on SaaS. We deliver our solutions with site scope monitoring. There was a question about Mobile Center. It's seamless, integrated. It also supports functional tests in the Mobile Center, and also provides you the performance in the device. So you can also have visibility on that. So end-to-end performance, network virtualization, service virtualization, I talk about that. The next one, why HP performance testing? Guys, thank you so much for making our community very cool. I would say this word, right? Because it is a nice large community. We have more than 10,000 customers. We want more than 1 million users worldwide. It's the largest community for performance testing across the globe. So it's a great opportunity. We do support many platforms, as you guys know. And you know, in the next slide, I want to leave you with a couple of little things here. Frisbees, right? Who doesn't like free offerings, right? So we create something very cool that is a performance analytics report. And this report basically analyzes your website in, I would say, less than 5 minutes, provide information in how your website is performing. it's a super nice, important report for you to see how your websites are performing. So clicking this link, we're going to put here in the chat area as soon as I stop talking, so you can kind of grab that link, sign up for this HP Freemium, we call HP Network Virtualization Freemium, and you're going to be amazed to see what are the pitfalls of performance that you have in your website and how you can improve. Not just seeing what's wrong, but some suggestions as well in how to manage that. The other point is the Performance Center on SaaS, a free trial for you. We want to remind you that we are available to do a free trial for you that wants to upgrade or wants to see all this functionality that we mentioned. We are very open for time, so please let us know. And also the free trial for a store runner for you to access. So you can also use for 30 days. It's also super simple and cool solution for stress and load testing, and it scale more than 1 million of users. So we have 3 here. Well, where is the 4? So let's go to the next slide. And you know, there is more, as they say in the TV, right? There is more. So fill out the survey, right? Or send, I'll go back one more slide. Yeah, so fill out the survey or send an email to us. I even put Vic's email here. And I'm going to put also my email and Mukulika's email. So if you are interested and want to learn more about what to present here, if you want exclusive demo, if you want to have a conversation with us, or if you want even to see the next release that's going to be released on fall, very soon. I cannot just say the date, but it's very, very, very soon. And the roadmap, just send an email to us. And we're going to schedule with you that demo and presentation. We are going to show to customers that are under NDAs. That's why we cannot do that publicly here. But yeah, send an email to us, even or fill out the survey, either one, right? And that we can contact you for this demo. And we also have 2 links here for additional material. Right, so compare Performance Center products and then also the Application Performance Engineering ebook. So again, thank you so much, guys. We're gonna jump now to the questions, and I'm gonna hand to Chris. Chris, there is some questions that I already marked for you to share with the audience, and we are gonna continue to answer all the questions here that we can. So go ahead, Chris, and you can go ahead with the questions.
All right, thank you everyone for attending the webinar. I'd like to give another reminder about the survey, and actually all attendees that opt in through the survey have a chance to win a HP Stream tablet. So that's really exciting. So maybe a little encouragement to fill out that survey and help these folks understand a little bit more about yourselves and what we need. So let's get to some of these questions. Our first question asks, which versions of Chrome and Safari are supported?
It's the latest version, and for details, you can look at Performance Center version 12.2 documentation.
Okay, fantastic. All right, let's get to our next question from Ryan. It says, can PAL also read logs from SAP servers?
It cannot, but PAL has a way, which is documented again in the PAL documentation, that if you want to read a log which is not supported out of the box, then you can just customize it using XML files to read any log that you want. Great.
Our next question from Jacqueline says, it says, assuming the environments are similar in capacity and size between test and production. So I believe she's asking for your shift left with more of a continuous testing, do you need to have similar capacity between test and production?
No. Again, what customers are doing, the very matured customers, they are doing continuous testing in tests, which is not exactly like production, but then they are doing some level of testing directly in production. But that is very matured customers, and that is mainly customers who are doing, say, their .com testing. But most customers are still having a test which is not at the scale of production, and then they're extrapolating the results.
Great. And may I also offer something that we do in-house, and you can also have baselines of good and continue testing your pre-production environments, knowing how they performed in the past, and maybe that's something that can help our individuals as well, correct?
Correct. And also another thing that customers are doing is, instead of looking at actual data like the actual response time, they are looking at the trend. They are looking at the changes with every release, because with Agile, since you're pushing out little changes instead of large changes, the trend, whether it's going up, going down, is more important sometimes than the actual data points.
Great point. Our next question says, for tip number 2, and that tip, as a reminder, is realistic testing using production, it asks, do I need to adjust logging levels on IIS to collect the production transaction sample, or do I just need to add code changes in the application code base?
So you don't have to instrument your application, but you do have to change your IIS access log level if you want to get your transaction level data. And that's why you won't be collecting like full 1 day's worth of log. You will, because in production changing log level is problematic, I understand, you will do it for a small snapshot.
Great, thank you. Another question that we have asks, what other build tools are supported?
So out of the box, we have Jenkins plugin, because I think right now the stats is more than 70% customers use Jenkins. But we do have REST API in Performance Center to call from other build tools. You can actually look at the our Jenkins plugin is not actually HP's Jenkins plugin. It's an open source plugin to which the community is contributing. So you can actually open it, see the code, see how we are calling the REST API, and you can directly do.
This question, I believe, was asked during your demo, and it asks, can you also show concurrency from the production data?
Can we also show, we cannot show, say, for example, database connections concurrency or thread level concurrency, but we do show the concurrent number of users. But it's a great feedback. Maybe we should show the rest also in future.
And then also as a reminder, as you mentioned before, for everyone, they can set up individual appointments with you for more thorough demonstrations to go deeper into some of these topics.
Correct.
Our next question asks, how do you design load with respective hits to each transaction or URL? They're not sure if this is workload-based or based on hits to the application.
It actually depends on the process that you want to follow.
Okay. This is a more general question, but something a very big trend with HP and really the development world, and that is, why is it mentioned as shift left?
Great question. We sometimes talk about shift left. The industry term is shift left because you're not doing performance or load testing. So generally, when you look at the time trends along the x-axis, you will see the time moves from left to right. What we are saying is extreme right is moving it into production. When you're moving to the left, it's much earlier than production. You're moving further and further away from production, more into dev cycle, and that's why it's called shift left. Of course, we are also seeing customers doing testing in production. We are seeing a lot of testing done by ops, and that's why we are also sometimes talking about shift right. But shift left means moving earlier in the time axis.
Thank you for that. Our next question asks, is there any chance that LoadRunner will support backward compatibility for load runner controller scenarios?
No, actually, we are forward compatible. So you will be able to execute even your scripts and your scenarios created on previous version on the newer versions. Since in the newer versions we might add additional features, that's why it's not possible to execute it in previous versions.
Thanks, Vicky.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Our next question goes back to CI discussions, asking if they can do continuous integration with Jenkins and ALM or Performance Center version 11.5.
The Jenkins plugin is supported officially from version 12. Before that, on 11.5.2, we have a patch, but I would really recommend you to move to version 12 because our latest version is 12.2, so you should at least be on version 12 by now.
Great, thank you for that. Next question asks for a little clarification about Mobile Center and App Pulse, and is it the same thing? Maybe a brief description of the differences.
So HP App Pulse Mobile is an application performance monitoring tool. It's like a real user monitoring tool for mobile devices. So when you push your application, your mobile native application or browser-based application to production or pre-production, you can see actually the data from real devices. What it means is, suppose you have moved your application to production using App Pulse Mobile, you can see that how many users are using it. They are using from what all locations in the world. They are using it from what all devices in the world. Mobile Center is more for testing. It's a mobile device management software used in testing phase to manage your different applications and your different devices. So if you have a lab of, say, 50 devices, you need to manage those devices. You need to manage the applications running on those devices. You need to make sure any functional automation or performance tests you're running can also connect to those devices.
Thank you. We are reaching the top of the hour, but I believe all three presenters have offered to extend a couple minutes to get through these questions. So we'd like to get through the last couple questions, and we appreciate everyone for hanging on. The next question asks, is there a platform for viewing the reports from customers who are using HP diagnostics effectively and how they are benefited?
So today with Load Runner and Performance Center, we have an integration with HP Diagnostics, and we can see that directly within these performance testing products.
Great. This next question asks, are there any mechanisms for extrapolating, presuming they're talking about log files that are provided by HP?
I didn't get the question, but I think what you're saying is there. So we provide a utility to extract the logs from production and then load it into our performance testing products. And we will extend it in future to connect, instead of directly extracting your log files, to connect to your log analytics products like Splunk and HP Ops Analytics.
Great. The next question, actually there's two almost the same, that are really looking to get any kind of tips about what kind of hardware specifications or requirements are necessary for virtualization.
So if you are asking about the hardware specs for implementing network virtualization and service virtualization, then it is there in our system requirements documents for these products.
Great. I think we're down to our last question or two here. Unless we've already touched upon it, what is the difference briefly between LoadRunner and StormRunner?
So LoadRunner is our flagship product, which has been around for 20 years. Worldwide, many customers are using it. It is mainly an on-premise product supporting different technology. StormRunner is our newest offering. It got released last October. It is mainly a cloud testing product for web and mobile applications. It is targeted towards agile teams. Today, it is a SaaS product. It spins up load generators in different parts of the cloud to test your web and mobile application, which can be external facing as well as internal. It supports cloud load generators as well as internal load generators. The scripting for StormRunner, we're building StormRunner as an open platform, so it supports HP LoadRunner Vusion scripts, TrueClient scripts, as well as it supports open source scripts like JMeter, etc. If you haven't seen StormRunner, as Sylvia said in one of the slides, you should definitely go and try it out. It's available on sas.hp.com. You get a 30-day trial, and you should give it a try.
Great. And one last question just came in I'd like to ask. So they have RUM in production, and can they integrate it with Performance Center to pull a PAL report?
Yes.
Great. And one last thing I think we're all looking to know is how Performance Center is licensed, or what is that migration path from LoadRunner to Performance Center, if it's easy to sum up?
So Performance Center is licensed by virtual users, just like LoadRunner. There are upgrade SKUs so that you don't have to spend so much since you already have LoadRunner. So if you are interested in upgrading from LoadRunner to Performance Center because say you have multiple LoadRunner instances and you want to centralize it into one center of excellence, please reach out to your HP account rep or Sylvia over here, and we can point you on what SKUs, what's the price, and how to do it.
Great. That actually sums up our questions and answers. Just a quick reminder to take and fill out the survey at the end, and that we will have the recorded webinar and the presentation available on the website, the Vivid website, along with all the other archived webinars in the near future. I'd like to thank again Sylvia, Mukalika, and Vicky for joining us today and presenting this topic.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, everyone. It was very nice to talk to you today, and we're going to be back. And remember, get our emails and contact us for any follow-up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.